Well have some more this weekend. I think you and I were talking about Friday night, perhaps Sunday as well, right? With us is the State Director of the Emergency Management and Superintendent of the New Jersey State Police, a familiar face, Colonel Pat Callahan. We also have the President of the Board of Public Utilities, Christine Sadovi. And we will, both Pat and Christine will share details as we get them over the course of our time together and beyond. I would just say this is one I would strongly encourage folks to not underestimate. While it's not snow in January, I think the human nature is to say, well, it's not snow, we're going to be okay. But we've seen with Ida and other storms that a lot of rain, high winds, and flooding can cause not just a lot of damage, but put lives at risk. And indeed, in Ida, we lost 30 blessed residents. So we are declaring a state of emergency effective at 5 p.m. tomorrow. And that call is based on both the severe weather forecast that may require statewide coordination by the New Jersey Office of Emergency Management, as well as the recent rainfall saturation, particularly in the Passaic and Raritan River areas, which were flooded in December. Beginning tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and continuing through Wednesday morning, but it's fair to say we believe the most intensity here is in the middle of the night. We're expecting in that window of 10 a.m. tomorrow through Wednesday morning 1 to 4 inches of heavy rain, strong winds, and potential coastal flooding. Some of our rivers may reach a moderate or major flood stage and will remain elevated through the week, which is why we are even more concerned about Friday and Sunday than we otherwise would have been. Wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles an hour are forecast for inland areas on Tuesday, and gusts of 55 to 65 miles an hour are forecast for the coastal areas. As I mentioned, there's also the possibility for another event as soon as Friday. During past storms, we have seen the devastation, including the loss of life that flooding can cause, as I mentioned a minute ago. So I'll use extreme caution, particularly if you're in and around the Passaic or Raritan rivers, and obviously the Pompton River is an offshoot of the Passaic, where major flooding is forecast. Clearly, if you don't need to be on the roads, please avoid driving until the storm passes. If you have to drive, slow down, use caution, and plan extra travel time, particularly during the evening commute, as road conditions may worsen as darkness falls, making it more difficult to assess water depths on roads. And do not assume, folks, that you can tell the depth of any pool of water, how fast it is moving, or that driving an SUV even means that you're safe. Cars can be swept away, and it happens in an instant, and sadly, we saw it, including loss of life during Ida. Folks disregarding do not pass, do not enter signs due to flooding, feeling for whatever reason they could deal with water more effectively than with some other element of Mother Nature, and they paid, in some cases, the ultimate price. As Christine will talk in a moment, the BPU is engaged with our electric power providers to ensure their readiness. Of course, if you experience an outage, please report it immediately. And if you come across a down wire, as we always say, stay away, please, and call that in as well. The State Emergency Operations Center will be activating, I believe, Pat, to a level 2 beginning at noon tomorrow. That's still right. And we'll continue to monitor the storm for any resource requests or assistance needed by municipalities or counties. Tim Hillman and Rob Field, with Pat's involvement, hosted a call for, how many mayors did you all have? 80 county and local officials earlier today. We'll continue to touch folks either directly on a bilateral basis or in group form. Our team will also remain in close contact with all their emergency management key stakeholders. So I'd suggest please keep track of updates on ready.nj.gov, which for me continues to be the best catch-all location, or through the state's or through official social media channels, including @GovMurphy on X. Before I pass this to Pat and ultimately then to Christine, I want to just go over some official advisories that are currently posted. So bear with me because there are 7 separate advisories. A high wind watch is posted from 6 p.m. Tuesday to 6 a.m. Wednesday for the following counties: Atlantic, Southeast Burlington County, Cape May, Cumberland, Monmouth, and Ocean counties. A flood watch is posted from 1 o'clock Tuesday until 6 p.m. on Wednesday for Atlantic, Burlington, Camden, Cape May, Cumberland, Gloucester, Hunterdon, Mercer, Middlesex, Monmouth, Morris, Ocean, Salem, Somerset, Sussex, and Warren counties. A flood watch is posted from 6 p.m. Tuesday until 6 p.m. Wednesday for Bergen, Essex, Hudson, Passaic, and Union counties. A coastal flood watch is posted from 7 p.m. Tuesday to 1 a.m. Wednesday for Salem County. And similarly, a coastal flood watch is posted from 9 p.m. Tuesday to 4 a.m. Wednesday for Northwest Burlington County, Camden, Gloucester, and Mercer counties. A storm watch is posted from 6 p.m. Tuesday to 6 a.m. Wednesday for the Raritan Bay, New York Harbor, Atlantic coastal waters, and the Delaware Bay. And finally, a small craft advisory is posted until 10 a.m. Monday for Atlantic coastal waters. As I hand things over to Pat, I would just reiterate, folks, please do not underestimate this storm, particularly given its intensity will be in the darkness of night through the middle of the night from tomorrow night through Wednesday morning. With that, please help me welcome the Superintendent of the State Police, Colonel Pat Callahan.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. I'll echo some of the Governor's remarks. The fact that we are activating the State Emergency Operations Center tomorrow, that means that we will have our primary state partners at the support desks there, which is primarily Board of Public Utilities in Christine's shop, Department of Transportation, and the Department of Environmental Protection. That will be open on a 24/7 basis. And we really do that to make sure that if any resource requests come in from our municipal OEM coordinators or the county, that we're able to readily handle those. I did have a call this afternoon with all of our county OEM coordinators as well as our state emergency management partners. The National Weather Service briefed on that, and we are expecting substantial and severe flooding. To the Governor's point, this one is not to be taken lightly at all. We will have our urban search and rescue team and swiftwater rescue teams staged in the center of the state, which will be able to go to any county that requires our assistance in that regard, and that includes our Marine Services Bureau with vessels. It also includes high water vehicles and some of the highest trained personnel in order to rescue people in swift water. If you do have to travel, and I stress it as well, just like the Governor did, that 511 is probably the best place to go. It's 511nj.org. There are probably going to be substantial detours around the state in those traditional spots where we see that flooding and those road conditions. Again, to the Governor's point, we have that phrase, turn around, don't drown. We do that for a reason. And even the largest SUVs, it doesn't take a whole lot of water to sweep you away. You put anybody in your vehicle, as well as first responders, at substantial risk for that. And we, to the Governor's other point, ready.nj.gov. From this point forward, we will be monitoring it. We do have our intelligence watch and warning personnel on staff 24/7, and I trust with our partners at the federal, state, county, and local level that we'll get through this. I did have an opportunity to speak to FEMA Region 2 Administrator this afternoon, David Warrington, and the federal government is also staged and ready to support us should we need it. So stay safe, everybody, and we'll guide ourselves through the storm together.
Thank you, Pat. Pat, I think this is a point you made, and Tim, in your calls with the mayors and local officials as it relates to FEMA. I would just say for anybody out there watching who's a mayor or a county official, count every penny in every instance of damage or expenditure here, because these thresholds from the feds tend to be high in terms of reimbursement, and the more data we have, the more likely it is that we'll get reimbursement. Is that
Correct.
fair?
Yep.
Thank you, Pat. As always, please help me welcome the President of the Board of Public Utilities, Christine Sadovi. Christine, come on down.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm also going to echo a little bit of what the Governor already said. We are expecting high winds and the potential for a significant number of outages. The BPU has been in communication with all of our utilities and will continue to be in communication with the utilities throughout the duration of the storm and afterward. The utilities are bringing in additional line crews as well as additional forestry crews and hazard crews to anticipate the potential for those outages. In addition to the electric side, there's also the concern around flooding when it comes to the gas side. And so, want to make sure that people are monitoring not just outages, but, any flooding, as the Governor said, as you're driving around, please be safe. If you do have an outage, do not assume that your neighbor is called it in. Make sure that you make the call to your utility. Charge your phone so that you can make the call and any other calls that you need. As the Governor said, down wires can be dangerous. These high winds, we are anticipating the potential for some down wires. If you see a down wire, assume it's live, stay at least 30 feet away, and contact 911 to report it. So again, anticipating some outages, make sure that you're calling them in, be safe out there, and thank you.
Christine, thank you. I don't want to lead the witness to a wrong conclusion, but in terms of some outages, it is quite possible we have tens of thousands of outages, right?
Yes, definitely possible.
So the outage, we would bet the combination of a lot of water and high winds. And you could see, I think of JCP&L's coverage area, which includes sort of a slice of a lot of the state, including the shore. You could see with the winds higher at the shore than inland, you could see
Absolutely.
a disproportion of those outages along the shore. So we're going to keep our communications high, as you would expect, both group meetings, bilateral, and we'll appear with you in this form if we need to. But with that, we'll take any questions you may have. Please. You get the gold star for being there both Saturday and today, by the way.
This is something that I was there Saturday. Commercial vehicles had restrictions over the weekend. No mention of that today. Also, New Jersey Transit. Where do we stand in terms of schedules and things like that?
Yeah. So I don't think we've got any commercial vehicle
Restrictions not at this point.
and so that at least as we stand here. Secondly, NJ Transit. We'll see. NJTransit.com, I guess, is the one place I'd send folks. But at the moment, we're just going to have to see. I mean, we had an enormous amount of disruption with Ida. Please God, it's not at the scale of Ida. But nothing to report on that at this point. Unlike Saturday, we are putting a state of emergency in place to your...
There hasn't been a state of emergency declared for the last month, even though there was a significant amount of flooding. Is that something that you guys might consider doing retroactively to help?
Why don't you address that, please?
Yeah, the state of emergency is usually done to put emergency protective measures in. It also gives the governor the ability to activate the National Guard. In that storm previously, it was my recommendation to not do that because those municipalities were handling those resources on their own and or at the county level. We had one resource request at Route 46 and 80 in Fairfield in Essex County. This storm, we do believe, is a little bit different. We think the timing of it, we think the saturated ground, the snowpack, which will make the ground impervious. So there's a few additional factors in here. And that state of emergency being issued or not. Also, although some people have not understood this, you do not need a state of emergency to seek a federal reimbursement or declaration. But out of an abundance of caution and given the magnitude of what we think this storm is going to do, that's why the governor is making this effective tomorrow night at 5 p.m.
We also, I hope this doesn't happen, the hours of the intensity of this storm appear to be right smack in the middle of the night. And when you combine that with, in other words, no daylight, a lot of expected power outages, and perhaps some rescue requirements, we figured we need all the tools available. Daniel, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Governor. Just off topic, on the letter that you sent this morning to bus companies sending migrants, how will you enforce the prior notification?
How do I what?
How will you enforce the prior notification that you requested?
Well, we're going to hope that the companies do the right thing, and if they don't, and we're going to make this decision pretty quickly, given this has sort of come upon us rather quickly, we reserve the right to leave all options available on the table. So that's a decision we'd make pretty quickly.
So if a bus company does not comply, what would happen?
To be determined, but all options are on the table, including some tough ones. Hey, Charlie, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Just on that topic, Congressman Watson Coleman, three others signed a letter asking you, or reminding the governor here about the solemn duty, I think is the phrase you used, to protect those who are fleeing from wars, conflict, et cetera. It's a humanitarian obligation. So what is your response to that, and what is your plan?
Well, certainly part of my response is the response that we've sent to the bus companies, because they're not doing a humane job with these people. This is a gimmick. Again, let me back up, Charlie, and say let's comprehensive immigration reform, please God, at long last. And we know the elements of the deal. We know it has to be humane, responsible, fit for the 21st century, but we have to secure our borders. We have to do the right things. Secondly, the treatment of these individuals is not humane at the moment, including the fact that we're getting no notice of their arrival. And we've heard some, Paramel, is it fair to say, we've heard some fairly horrific stories about the in-transit reality for these folks. So we're trying to make that better. Give us some notice, give us some parameters by which you do this, but at the same time, let's get adults in the room at the table. And by the way, Greg Abbott ain't one of them. And let's figure this out. Please. Sorry. I'm shocked you weren't asking about the weather. That's why I thought you came. I appreciate that. Put that up in the light, somebody. Yeah. I saw the story, and I frankly am I'm going to have to come back to you because that didn't register with me. Unless Paramel, are you aware of anything? I'm not sure where that comes from, so if we can come back to you. It comes from Daniel, I know, and I have great respect for Daniel, but I read it and said, I don't recall that ever being the case. But we'll come back to you. Nikita. I don't want to because it's part of some legal action that New York is taking, but it's not pretty. I'll leave it at that, if I may.
Are you considering joining the lawsuit that New York filed against the bus companies?
I think it's fair to say that we're considering all of our options, and I'll leave it at that. Hey, Brent. Brent, what'd you think of that experiment earlier?
That was interesting. I was happy to be there.
Yeah, I think we're going to make a habit of doing that. We had some desk signings, and I think Mahan ran into Brent in a bar or something last night and decided that to come in as a sort of pool reporter. I thought it worked pretty well, actually.
How does this affect tomorrow's swearing in of the legislature in your state?
At the moment, everything is on, but this is something obviously we're giving a lot of thought to. Pat and Christine and I and our colleagues had a fairly full discussion about this before coming out here. And the state of emergency is not a coincidence at 5 o'clock because we think that's going to give us a few hours, but the worst part of the storm will be late tomorrow night into Wednesday morning. So we think right now we can safely do all of the swearings in and the state of the state. Obviously, it's Mother Nature, so if that shifts in some meaningful way, we'll be back. But at the moment, everything is on. So I just want to conclude by saying, first of all, thanks to Pat Callahan and Christine Sadovi for their great leadership. And Pat and I have done, I think at this point, I would say, use the word countless of these with storms over the years, but they're coming at us rapid fire this year. I just would plead with you folks, do not underestimate this storm just because it's rain. In January, no snow. Trust us, this is one that we have to take very seriously. God willing, it'll be better than what we're expecting, but we can hope for that, but not plan for that. Again, ready.nj.gov, 511 if it's a traffic related, njtransit.com in terms of their service, at Gov Murphy on X. Those are the various spots. We will endeavor to communicate with folks, as I mentioned, in some combination of bilateral, group, or public events like the one we're in at the moment. But again, everybody, please be safe. And I guess the last one is, if you don't have to be out between tomorrow sort of early evening and Wednesday morning, don't be out. If you are out during the commute, in particular tomorrow night and Wednesday, please be careful. Drive slower. Be respectful of the crews that are out there. I suspect in this case will be a lot of power company crews and contractors out working with them. Thank you all.